Thank you, Matt, for joining us on Lessons from School of Life podcast. Whenever I saw your post, it was really inspiring me. It inspired me personally, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been joining a lot of groups like that recently just to kind of connect with other guys and see if I can help, but I really appreciate that.
I really want you to, um, kind of covers to say what was the pivotal moment for you.
For me, it's crazy looking back 4 years ago at the person that I was and remembering just how much I faced, just a lot of depression and a lot of kind of suicidal thoughts and anxiety and it really truly, like, I would have dreams about my future self. I would go, okay, like maybe I could be this person, but I just don't see it, because I had just such a low view of myself, if that makes sense. And I know when I shared my story on the Facebook group, it was, I had mentioned that, I'd basically lost everything. I had this amazing job. I had friends and I had, on social media, everything looked like it was okay.
Appeared.
But yeah, like I kept up appearances, as we all do, but really, I was waking up every morning just feeling just this deep sadness and like a sense that I wasn't accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. Or I had friendships and relationships that were very, very toxic and holding me down.
Wow.
And I often blamed myself for those relationships. I felt like I had to fix that and that it was my fault. And so I dealt with that for, months and months and months. This was probably 2018, 2019. And I remember the night. I remember December 6th, 2019. I tried to take my life. My friends had called, the police, and they came to do a wellness check. And I just remember kind of vividly sitting in the back of the cop car, and I was crying and just not, stable at all. And then there was just kind of this light bulb this voice that kind of showed up and just said, "Okay, are you tired of this yet?" It was just that was what it said. It was just, "Are you done? Are you tired of this?" And it was interesting because, I was so kind of lucid in that moment, thinking, okay, I've gone down this road of fear and depression and anxiety, and I've kind of let it kick my, ass, so to speak, and it's just, when am I going to fight back? And at that time, I had to move out of my apartment that I was living in. I moved back in with my family, and this was right before the pandemic started. So December 2019, I go back home. I'm essentially literally living in my parents' basement. And there's, of course, we all, as guys, there's that sense of like, oh, I should be achieving more in my life, and I shouldn't be living with my family. So I had a lot of those, thoughts, inside of my head. But for the first couple of months that I had moved back in with my family, I was in therapy twice a day. I would just meet with my therapist twice a day, and I would work on just focusing on getting better, just a little bit better one day at a time. I had a dream of doing a podcast about mental health and superheroes because I loved superheroes. I wanted to get my real estate license. I wanted to make money. I wanted to do all these things, but I was so kind of, internally, really just struggling so much. So, I made the decision, especially when the pandemic started. It was like, okay, nobody gets to go outside. Nobody gets to do anything. This is my time to kind of reset and change everything. So it was kind of, like a 4 or 5 month period of really taking inventory of my entire life. I had moved out to the Los Angeles area to pursue acting. And up until that point, this is going on maybe 7 years, I had never booked a part on a TV show. I had never really achieved any success in that arena outside of, independent projects or, stuff that I'd made on my own. So I really just dug into, okay, I'm going to practice every day, practice my audition taping. I'm going to get get new headshots, get a new agent, all of that stuff, work with a coach. And then lo and behold, a year and a half later, I got my first part on a TV show and got flown out to New Orleans to do this small part on a show. And it's not a huge success, but it just showed me that, persistence and taking, care of myself and putting an effort into something that I really wanted to see a results in, did manifest in a way. And on top of that, along the way, I did start my podcast. It's called My Heroic Life. And I did 30 episodes. And basically from middle of the pandemic through 2021, I did those 30 episodes. And then I got asked to join a master's program and in screenwriting. So I kind of put that on hold, the podcast on hold, to go do that. And I did get my real estate license. And it really is, I think, for me, like a testament to the fact that I just started small, and we'll get into that. But I think for me, it was just that moment, looking back on it, it was really that moment of, have you had enough? Are you going to finally face the demons that have been kind of plaguing you for so long? And what does that look like? So yeah, it did start with that moment.
You're sitting there in the back of the police car and you're like, man, Matt, like, are you done? And it's that inner critic, and then there's this inner voice. This inner critic is always feeding you like, hey, I'm not good enough, and all of my toxic people are, my responsibility, and it's up to me to fix this, and I should do a better job. And you were talking about the environment that you were part of before, and how you felt obligated and responsible to either change it or took the responsibility for being what it was, right? And what happened with that voice died, and this voice rose up. Like I think that's the key. It's fascinating. And like, how did you stick with it, like those two voices?
Totally. I totally relate to that. There's a great podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The One You Feed. And it's based on the parable of two wolves, which are, I don't know if you've heard of this parable, and I'm totally going to butcher it because I don't have it in front of me, but it's that idea of you feeding the evil critical voice, or feeding the wolf that is the kind, noble, loyal, encouraging voice. That is like a very broad way of describing that parable, but it's essentially like, which voice are you going to feed? Which voice are you going to give into and entertain?
Right.
And I think for me, that evil, critical, damaging, self-loathing voice was so strong for so long that it was all I knew. So I had to start small. I had to start introducing the idea of a softer, more encouraging, kinder voice inside of my head. And it took time and practice. And, for me, my biggest problem was, waking up in the morning and feeling just like I didn't want to do anything. I would just kind of be paralyzed in bed and staring at the ceiling and thinking about my life and what I wanted to do. And then I would just feel so much shame that I wasn't doing anything. And it was like, okay, well, if I could just get out of bed and start moving and start doing something, no matter what it is, no matter how small, that's progress. And that's basically what my therapist started me off with. She just said, okay, let's just write down one or two things, just one thing, that you could accomplish that would make you feel good about yourself. And I made it super small. I said, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes a day. That was it.
Wow.
And I took, inventory of that. I made a tracker, and I said, okay, I'm going to make sure I get my 10-minute walk in every day. Well, more often than not, I did way more than 10 minutes. I'd start for 10 minutes and I go, oh, I actually want to just keep going because I got, some good music going, and I'm, getting some exercise. I'm out of the house. And so I started kind of incorporating that philosophy into every aspect of my life. And I started adding more things to my habit tracker. I was like, I'm going to make sure that I might, like, really simple stuff on the surface, like brush your teeth, make your bed, all the things your parents tell you to do when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But it's like all of those things add up, and it's funny because, I'm doing cognitive behavioral therapy and I'm working with a therapist and spending so much money, but it's these really simple things that it's like going back to the basics of taking care of myself and just starting from the ground up and building. And what I found was the more consistent I got with these small things, the better I felt, because where it was really showing up for me was, I had these really close friends who had essentially just abandoned me after I had tried to take my life. They said, we don't want anything to do with you. You're crazy, or, whatever the language was. And I would feel so ashamed of myself for that, and not recognizing that these people just weren't right for me. They weren't serving me, and there was some negativity there that they were dealing with. And I would, go for months and months and months working on myself, kind of building myself up back up and feeling great. And then I would reach out to them and say, hey, I've been really working on myself. I wanted to talk, and, maybe, we can be friends
Reconnect.
again. Yeah. And they would always shun me and say, no,
Wow.
stay away from that. And then I would completely nosedive back
Go
down.
down. Yeah.
And I would feel this, the shame again. I'd get on the phone with my therapist and I go, I know I wasn't supposed to reach out to these people because they're not good for me, but I just thought if they saw how much I've been improving, they'd bring me back into their life. And they never did. And it was a huge lesson for me, because I realized, okay, I'm not actually doing this because I want the friendship. I'm actually doing this in a lot of ways because I need that validation, or I need that support or encouragement from them. I need them to almost tell me that I'm okay, that I'm a good person. And then when I do it, I get the opposite. And so it was like this cycle of, okay, like, where does my self support come from? How do I feel about myself? And how do I cultivate a mindset of getting out of this routine of thinking, oh, it only matters what someone else thinks of me, not what I think of myself. And I had to learn how to make that transition and make that switch. And it was not easy. It was a lesson in, if you keep doing this, if you keep allowing people in your life who are hateful or spiteful or just discouraging, and whatever the reasons are, and they had their reasons at the time for ending the friendship that were totally
Sure.
reasonable.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
for me, it was about just recognizing that my value and my inherent worth as a person. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people stay in relationships that are very toxic or very discouraging, and it can play a huge role in your mental health and your mindset. So for me, that was a huge part of, kind of coming back from this very dark place, was recognizing almost from the very beginning that this friendship was not a good thing for me. And then once I had finally kind of slayed that dragon, it's almost like in video games, it's the final boss, taking out that beast that's in your head. And that, for me, that's what that was. It was finally going, okay, no, this is not good for me, and I'm going to walk away. So much of my change and my purpose and how I became who I am today was by starting small and just really staying with that, staying consistent.
So it seems like you really had to nail down a small, a set self-care routine, stick to it, be true to yourself, and start small and stay consistent throughout it, and things just started to move in a better direction, and you were feeling better, doing better, and everything started coming together little by little.
Sure. Yeah. And that voice, going back to the original question, we were talking about the voice. I would still have that really angry, critical voice show up sometimes and kind of try to, to set me back.
A lot of people, not just you. I don't know why. I think society, as we're growing up, and the high school, the middle school experiences, it makes us lean towards getting accepted, and we prioritize that over everything. And I think I mentioned this the other day. It's like, when did you ghost yourself? And a lot of people don't realize that us growing up and trying to dress a certain way, trying to be a certain way, trying to be in a certain part of a friend circle, trying to get a certain status, starting that middle school and high school, we abandon our true self. And it's like, what mattered to Matt? Matt no longer knows. What did Matt dream about? He doesn't know, because he's trying to figure out, what they think is a cooler dream. He's going to try to be that hero. And that's the role he's going to adapt in his life. And a lot of the conditioning that we go through, the upbringing in our adolescence and our teenage year really compels us to conform and to abandon ourselves, causing tremendous self-worth issues and identity crisis. And because of that, we always surround ourselves with people, or at the time, whenever we're not noticing this, I've done the same thing, Matt. I kind of was a genius of a student, as like a human calculator, and one girl that she just rejected me, and I just couldn't understand why. So I just started to become this gangster of a kid that she liked at the time. And I started getting tattoos. I started doing all of this, and then before I know it, I was knee deep. I didn't know who I was, where I was going. I think we all go through it, but the hardest thing is that nobody takes the time to get the power back. And you got your power back, right? You got your self-worth back. You ended up taking charge of your life, right? And you no longer need the approval and authority of somebody else to say, Matt's doing the right thing. Matt's doing and living the way he's supposed to. Matt feels good about what he's doing today. He's proud for the efforts that he's putting in. No matter how big or small, he's very consistent, and he's going to consistently keep doing that. And that's his road to success. And he's going to progress on it day by day, small steps, little steps, medium steps, whatever it's going to take. But he's comfortable and he's happy, and he doesn't need anybody else to tell him that. Right. And that's the liberation in this entire journey. That's priceless. You can't feel like that. Nobody can make us feel like that. The way you feel whenever you decided to say, hey, these people are, I don't know what's wrong with them. I'm not going to try to figure it out, but it's clearly not what's good for me. And at this time, I know I need to do this for me. I'm going to keep doing that. And I don't really need this, challenge that a lot of us go through, I think, on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think we talk about it enough, and especially as men. And we're conditioned again to suppress our emotions, to be this macho man, regardless of how we're feeling. Man, I think the culture that I come from, I don't know if you know Shiva, and the dance of life is all about balancing your masculine and feminine energies. So that's how you unite into a balanced chakra system. That's how you really become the best version of yourself, when you balance both of those energies, because you also have the ability to destroy, and you also have the ability to be empathetic at the same time, right? You can communicate your feelings, you could be vulnerable, but you could also take charge, you could lead, you could conquer. And once you balance both of those, you're a complete package. You become high value, you become high vibrational, right? You become in tune with the universal laws. And we're raised in a capitalistic society where, men are supposed to be masculine, and masculinity has no room for femininity. And femininity, has taken over the role of masculinity because of the capitalistic society that we created, in over the 250 years. It's a really complex dynamic in your mind. So what did you do whenever, because there was probably still the inner demons that you were fighting throughout this entire recovery. I know you said you were seeing a therapist, and I'm sure that was a great help. But, where did you get your positive juice? Where did you get your cup refilled? How did you do that? And how did you continue staying positive? Because this is.
Yeah, great question. I think it's a combination of things, but it's really, for me, it was just really investing in the things that I cared about. Just like you were saying, it was that sense of, okay, let's get back to what Matt likes and what Matt loves to do and what really fulfills Matt. Because for a lot of years of my life, I was living for other people. I had a tendency to, latch onto a romantic relationship with someone who was kind of, maybe emotionally distant or cold or not as interested in me as I was in them. And I would start to change for them and I would start doing what they wanted to do. And I would feel more and more, kind of down on myself. And I recognized after doing this for so many years that, oh, well, when I was little, when I was a kid, I was so joyful and I had so much fun. And I was so, almost like comedic. I was almost like a class clown. And then something changed. When I was in my teenage years, I was bullied a lot, or there was a girl that rejected me, all those things that you were saying. And, all of a sudden it wasn't Matt anymore. It was, I'm, kind of almost subservient to the needs of everybody else and what everybody else is putting on me. And, I had to learn that this has been such a crazy journey because, the people that know me, that have known me the longest, remember me as being a very kind of shy, introverted, introspective person that never took risks and never showed his funny side. And that had been kind of my, like, the labels that people put on me for 10 years. And then after I had worked on myself for a couple of years, I had gone out and done the things that I really love. So, it was therapy, but, I love going out on hikes. I love playing ultimate frisbee, which is the dorkiest sport in the world, but it's so much fun. I love talking about mental health and comics and movies. I love movies. I love writing. I love storytelling. So I went and got my master's, and that was a whole process because I had bad grades when I was in college. So I had to work on, my entry paper and all that and getting references. So, but I had to really just go, okay, I'm going to fully invest in all of the things that I really love. And then, when I got that part on the TV show in New Orleans, I decided to move there. So
Wow.
I lived there for 8 months, and I found this acting class. Acting classes in LA are very, some of the teachers can be very strict and very hard on you. I like to think of Los Angeles acting coaches as kind of like the Vince Lombardis of coaches. And sometimes they can be like very, just really hard on you and they break you down kind of before they build you up. But I met this amazing acting teacher in New Orleans who, I came into this class and, I've been doing this for 8 years and I did this monologue that was very kind of dramatic and it was like a romantic, guy kind of professing his feelings for a girl. And it's a monologue I've always done really well. And he goes, I want you to change something. I want you to come in and do it differently. And he made me do like a bunch of jumping jacks and got me all kind of wired up. And then I came in and did the scene again and everybody was laughing just like uncontrollably. And then something kind of went off in my head and I go, oh, this isn't a drama. It's a comedy. Oh my God. So I kept going and I just kind of improvised off of it. And after I finished, the teacher said, he's like, has anybody ever told you that you're really funny?
Yeah.
And I said, no, like not in LA, that wasn't really my brand. And then my friends don't even kind of think of me that way. And he goes, dude, you're like Chris Pratt, Zachary Levi funny. You're hilarious. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I guess nobody really ever gave me permission to do that. And then I started kind of reflecting and I go, well, that's who I was when I was a kid. Why would I not, share that side of myself with people, and I actually went back home and I shot a scene, like a comedy scene that, I'd never done anything like that before. Like it was just so unexpected for me to do something like that. And I put some money together and got a producer and wrote this fun little, short that was about a vampire that's afraid of blood. And it was just this totally comedic thing. It's based off of, What We Do in the Shadows, if you've ever seen that show. And I put it on Instagram and it got 40,000 views. And everybody commented on it and said, Matt, this is so good. This is so funny. And I realized, okay, like this is authentically, I'm doing something authentically that's true to my personality and something it's just fun. And I had so much fear doing it, but I just really just went into it all full steam ahead. And it really changed, I think, perception of me and just in the casting world. And I started getting auditions for comedy all of a sudden. So it's interesting, I care a lot less about acting than I used to. I still love, auditioning and going through the process. But I think for me, self-development personal development and helping people kind of find that same sort of thing where it's like maybe you're funny, maybe you have this like really incredible, you know, gift that you're just kind of suppressing because you're afraid to put it out there into the world, or whatever it is. And I know for me, like that was the journey. The journey was going back to the basics of who am I at my core, and what do I really want to do, and what do I really want to say. That really forced me to change.
Ego self and the true self, and we abandon the true self in order to protect the ego self from the shame and the embarrassment and the bully. But you know, when we're young, we don't know what we're doing, but we pretty much neglect ourselves, right? We ghost ourselves, and then when somebody else ghosts us, we feel so hurt because it's like, well, I gave up my entire life to be this version, and you're rejecting that. Are you serious? You know, and it's like, I've done everything that I could, and nobody knows that, right? Like, you're like, I've done everything I have possibly can, inside me, outside me, everything. I've sacrificed so much to become this version, and you're rejecting that version. I don't know what I did wrong. That's kind of like the feeling that I had, and the visions that I had when I was going through my episodes, you know, whenever I needed to go through this journey. I think everybody goes through it at some point, you know, some sooner, some later. But I think I was really grateful that, you know, things could have been really bad. You know, most people, like, everything comes together when we're doing what we're meant to do, right? And it's completely natural. And like when we put that natural energy into it, like, man, I'm gonna do this because this is what I love doing. You know, like Beethoven was playing his piano the way he was doing it just because he loved it. He didn't do it for millions of people. He wasn't like, I'm gonna get millions of people to like this on YouTube. It was more about like, I just want to play my heart out. And whenever Prince was making his music, it was the same thing. He's like, he wanted to do it according to his way, his style, his taste. And he didn't want no interference from the record labels or anybody else. He just wanted to do it for him. You know, he wanted to perfect it for him. And it goes down to a lot of the greats, you know, who have done meaningful things, contributions in the world. So Albert Einstein, you know, you could just go on, but it's that energy that you get into it. It's like, man, like, I'm so happy doing this. And if you could shed a light on what would be like your, do you journal? Like, how do you still like stay on top of your game, you know, continuously? Because, you know, people think it's easy to get to it's hard. People say it's hard to get to the top, but it's harder to stay there. Right. And you have just as much or equal barriers. They're pulling you down. You know, the higher you get, you have more gravity pulling you down, and more people too. How do you do that today?
Yeah, I love that question. There are a few things, but I think this phone that I have, I try to stay off of it as much as I can, because and it's the way that I do that is, I know it's funny because this thing is like a tool of destruction, or it can be a tool of
Creation.
like creation and support. And so I found that, you know, most of my friends that I've talked to recently, just in terms of productivity and a sense of peace and all these things that they're really longing for, can all easily be solved by turning the power button off on this, which is a crazy thing to say in this day and age because we get so many phone calls and emails and texts and everything. So this is the solution I came up with recently, because Instagram was always kind of my poisonous, toxic friend, that I would log into and look at, you know, everybody's lives and feel kind of less than, or feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not at this party, or I'm not at this event, or, I'm just this influencer is killing it and I'm not, or whatever. So they finally introduced the mute feature on Instagram, because what I would do is I'd deactivate my account for a while, or I'd delete the app, and I would never last very long. I'd always come back to it because the whole thing is designed to be like a drug. It wants you to come back. It's like designed like a lottery machine. So you can mute anyone you want. So I very like methodically over a period of weeks muted every single person that I followed on Instagram, or unfollowed those that I didn't need to follow anymore. And I only follow 10 people, and it's people that really inspire me, or really, really, motivate me to change and are doing something good in the world. So that's the first thing. And the great thing about that is it's like, okay, well, if I really need to check up on someone or check DMs, I still can. And then, so that's one thing, but going even further, just detaching from all of the, the stress and anxiety that I feel, I go out on a lot of walks. So I will leave my phone behind on occasions and just go out on a hike and just be one with nature, and just have, it's just me and my voice. Sometimes I'll go out with music, but for the most part, it's my internal voice and me and nothing else. And I'm just kind of observing nature, listening to the birds, whatever it is. And I cannot tell you how, that sounds so simple on the surface, but I cannot tell you how fulfilling and rewarding it is to have that moment in my day where I can just get away from everything and just be with me. So those are two things that I'm like actively practicing today. I do journal a little bit. I am quite a bit of a writer, so I have other writing projects going on, but sometimes I'll doodle and journal. And then meditation has been super helpful for me as well. There are a lot of different forms of meditation, but for me, I really like this idea of meditating on joy and meditating on laughter. And the reason I say that is because early on, when I was focusing on meditation, it was, about observing thoughts as they pass by, and just kind of observing the negative thoughts and not attaching anything to them, or getting, like fighting them or whatever, but just kind of letting them pass by
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
observing them. And after a while, I went, okay, what if I had kind of a funny kind of response to all these
Scenes.
thoughts
Yeah.
as they're going by? So I still to this day get some very negative thoughts that'll come in and say, like, you're not good enough, you're not valuable, you're not worthy, and they pass by and I go, ha, that's funny, that's not true. That's whatever. Yeah. And I think that's actually really powerful, because we tend to latch onto these thoughts and we go, oh my God, yeah, I'm not good enough. But and then, or it's the reverse, we're like, oh no, I don't like that, I don't that's not true. But I think just having kind of some levity in there when you're just observing your thoughts and really getting quiet and listening to what's going on inside of your head, if you can just have fun with it and have a little bit of levity and joy in there, just be like, huh, that's an interesting thought, okay, next, bye, goodbye thought. And I think that's really powerful, because I listened to there was a YouTube video I watched years ago. I forget the guy, the YouTuber, but he was talking about this idea of entertaining thoughts. And he said, you wouldn't entertain a rude person at your house. Like, if a rude person showed up in your house and banged on the door and you opened the door, would you let them into the house and let them sit on your couch and just sprawl out and have chips and dip and just be there and treat you like crap? No, you would just shut the door.
Right.
And you'd say, go away. And he's like, but we don't do that with our thoughts. We allow these thoughts to come in the door and run around and run amok. And it's like, okay, well, in the future, let's practice and cultivate this idea of not entertaining rude, discouraging thoughts. And it takes time. It's a practice. That's why meditation is called a practice. But I found it to be very, very helpful for me.
Everything you shared, a lot of people could benefit a lot. It definitely gives me insight, because sometimes we get sucked into the day-to-day so much, and we forget to we neglect a little bit of thing here. The next day we sacrifice something else. 2 days later we're like, oh, I don't need to write today, it's okay. And before you know it, you get into this pattern about neglecting yourself. And self-care is super essential. in order to foster self-growth, and to maintain self-worth, because, and that's the definition of self-love, all three of those things. When we really care about ourselves enough to say no to the things that are really damaging to us, and our true selves. What's one thing, I know it's probably, you have tons, what's the biggest lesson that life has taught you so far that you would want to share with people?
This is the first thing that's coming to mind right now, because yeah, like you said, there are a lot of things, but the first thing that I thought of was momentum is everything. And the reason I say that is because we were just talking about how when we get into a negative space and we feel like we can just kind of relax and let these kind of dark thoughts kind of come in and run around, that if the more we do that, it starts to gain momentum. We start to spiral. The great thing about momentum is you can go the other direction. You can start small and really focus on the good that you bring to the table. Focus on, focus on the things that really matter to you, that make you valuable, that make you feel fulfilled. When you do those things and you go in that direction, you can pick up momentum. You can snowball in a positive way and really change who you are. And when you do that one day at a time, little by little, you could look back 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you're going to be a completely different person in the best possible way. And so I always urge people to remember the power of momentum and how smaller actions turn into bigger ones. And it's just been such a important part of my life to know that.
Matt, we'll keep doing what you're doing. We're proud of you. And thank you for taking your time to share the story, man. And hopefully we see more work from you. I know author, you just graduated you just obtained your master's, and congratulations on that. You still have your heroic podcast going on. So you have lots of things going for you. Look forward to whatever it is that you continue to do, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help, man. So
thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you having me on. It was an honor to do this, so thank you.
Likewise. Anything else, Matt? Burning desires?
Listening to this and is inspired by this. I had mentioned this idea of being encouraged by an acting teacher last year. I think relationships are so important and integral to our lives, and so look for people in your life who are joyful and encouraging and really want to see you succeed and want to see you thrive, and really truly love you for the person that you are. Because when you start to kind of bring those people into your circle, you're all going to be lifting each other up. That's been a huge tent pole of my life, is just, it doesn't matter. The quantity doesn't matter. Like, the amount of friends you have doesn't matter. The quality of the friendships you have and the people that you bring into your life who are really there for you and encouraging you every step of the way, that's huge. So please do that.